Welcome then to this afternoon's Rovers TV Q&A, and today we have got one of the best to bring you. The king, the legend, 28 appearances, 18 tries, 3 goals, and what more can I say? None other than joining us from down under, Cameron King.
Pete, how are you, mate? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you again, buddy. Good to see you. Before we get into this, Cammy, what I want to do is just let the people see just all about the king, mate.
It's it's good. It's a bit crazy at the moment. Times are a bit different to what everyone's used to, but really enjoying being back home and being around family and friends. But obviously just sort of staying home as much as we can at the moment, trying to stop the spread. But hopefully things are starting to look better here in Australia anyway. So trying to get back to some sort of normality.
It's obviously hard, isn't it? I mean, it's affected everybody worldwide as this pandemic, and it's strange times. But it's also, I think, given everybody a chance to look back and refocus on what's important in life.
Yeah, that's it. It's with every sort of setback in life, there's always a chance for a bigger comeback, and hopefully, like you said, it's unprecedented times, but hopefully people are taking positives out of it and building good relationships with those around them, and really taking note of what's important in life. And I think we're going to come out of it stronger as a world and as a nation.
Cammy, it's great to see you, and obviously a lot of fans joining us on this one. I know you're at Cronulla Sharks now. We know it hasn't started too good for you, but how far down the line are you with recovery?
It's obviously not how I saw things going when I came back to Australia, but in terms of the recovery, it's going really good. It's a bit slow at the moment. I just got out of a leg brace last week, so I was in that for 6 weeks. So that's obviously limits what I can do, but I'm out of that now, and it looks like we're going to go back to training next week. What that looks like, I'm not sure, but it'd be good just to be back around the club and get to really start properly on my rehab and doing all I can to get back and play some footy.
Looking at the authorities down under the rugby league authorities, and they've said that if games have to go ahead, they've got to go ahead behind closed doors. Yet here in the UK, we don't seem to have this cooperation yet, and I think it's frustrating many fans. But at least you've got some idea back, as to what. Well, I know the game won't be the same, but at least what's happening.
Yeah, it won't be the same, but I think everyone involved in the game just wants the game to come back, and unfortunately, at this point in time, that means empty stadiums and no fans. But if that means that people get to watch it on TV on the weekends, then I guess you got to weigh up what's important. And we've got some really good people, I think, in the NRL who are pulling the right strings, and they've been working really hard for the last 4 or 5 weeks to get the game back to some sort of normality. And it's looking like it's not too far away, which is good.
Yeah, really good, really good. Cammy, let's talk a little bit about about your journey as a rugby league player. Born 17th of September 1991 in Wagga Wagga, New South Wales. Cammy, obviously a blue.
Yeah, definitely a blue. So
good man.
The colours of Featherston fit well with me.
Good man. Because I read sort of like a couple of bits in the past, and I was looking at I know you played in the junior setup in the state of origin kind of things, and one of the things that stuck out in my mind was that you'd said you just learned how to hate Queensland.
Yeah, I did say that. It was probably a little bit silly, but in under 18s, we played State of Origin, and I was lucky enough to captain that team, and we had about a 10-day camp. And yeah, just all of this emotion just came over, the whole group. We sort of learnt what State of Origin was all about, probably for the first time. Being sort of 18, you're at that senior level. And yeah, we had a really good week. We had a really good team, and I think I just was caught up in the emotion, and I did an interview during the week, and I learnt how to hate Queensland. And not long after that, I moved to Queensland and played for the Cowboys, so that didn't sit too well up there. But it's definitely, there's so much passion behind State of Origin, and that was my first sort of taste of it, and it was unreal.
Brilliant. I mean, Cameron, you've touched club-wise, St. George Illawarra, North Queensland Cowboys, Parramatta Eels, the one and only mighty Featherston Rovers, and then Cronulla Sharks. Obviously, there's been a few other amateur clubs and things like that in between. So let's talk a little bit about the journey then, of obviously what saw you start and eventually end up at Featherston.
So, I've been playing footy since I was 4 years old. There was no under 4s or 5s, so I had to play under 6s. And then, I just fell in love with the game. Played it all my life. Tried some other sports as well. Tried soccer, rugby union, cricket, everything growing up. But rugby league was always my passion. And I moved to Sydney when I was 14 or 15 to try and really chase my dream of playing NRL. And I was lucky enough to get picked up by the Dragons playing some school footy, and came through the grades at the Dragons, under 15s, under 18s, under 20s. And was lucky enough to make my debut first grade in 2010 for the Dragons.
And then obviously success seemed to go hand in hand with yourself. Would you say, taking the injury side of it apart, you have been a quality, lucky player? That luck has shined on you in certain circumstances, because obviously you've had a fair amount of accolades. Way too many for me to list now.
I'd like to think that when I've been fit and healthy, that any team I've been a part of has been pretty successful. And I only play a small part in that team, but I'd like to think sort of my leadership qualities and just being a really good teammate really shines through. And that's definitely something I pride myself on. And I always try my best every time I'm on the field, and I'll never give up, in any game or in any play. So I've been lucky to be a part of some really good teams with really good players, but I like to think that I've played my part in that team.
One of the games that always sticks in my mind, my first kind of experience of seeing you, was the World Club Challenge against Wigan, where you got what can only be described as an absolute peach of a try, mate.
It was. It's a bit of a silver lining for me, that game, because obviously I was 19, playing in that big of a game. Scored a great try, and then 2 minutes later tore my pec, and essentially I missed the whole season that year. And as it happens in footy, someone else came in and took my spot, and from then on I was sort of always second or third in line, and it was really hard for me to establish myself at the Dragons after that. But anytime I got a chance to play, I really took it with both hands and always did my best.
Yeah, well, it shows. And obviously you ended up at Featherston. So let's talk a little bit about your time at Featherston. I think it goes without saying, Cammy, that, you are a firm fan's favourite, in the time that you spent there. And it shows as well that, you still keep in touch with the fans now, how you interact with them, on social media and things like that. What was that first thought of yours, when you sort of like turned on Post Office Road and saw the ground and then went into the stadium? What was your first thought?
Well, I'm glad we're talking about Featherston, Pete. Just give me 1 second to get a bit more comfortable.
Here's one for the ladies. Oh, here we go. Oh, and he's got the cap. Legend.
How does that look, everyone? All right?
Excellent, Cammy.
Now I'm a bit more comfortable.
That's it. You feel a bit more at home now.
That's it. A bit more at home now.
Yeah. So talk us that.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. Look, it was. I honestly had no idea what to expect. The only time I'd ever been to England was for that World Club Challenge, and we stayed in London for a week and then Manchester for a week, and didn't get out too much. And obviously, I didn't know too much about the Championship footy either. You don't really get to see that on TV in Australia too much, so I had no idea what to expect. I knew Ryan Carr as well, so before I went over there, I'd met up with him a couple of times, and he was pretty excited, and he's a pretty passionate guy as well. So I knew with him in charge, whatever team I'd be coming into would be, well run by a good coach. And as soon as I turned up, so I got to England on a Friday afternoon, turned up for captain's run Saturday the next morning. I hadn't met any of the players, turned up, sort of said, "G'day, I'm Cameron." And then played about 20 minutes in a trial game against Leeds the next day. And, just from straight away, I felt the passion of the club. The fans are really welcoming. The bunch of players that we had there was unreal. And, I was excited for the year ahead. I didn't know much about the Championship, so I didn't know really if we had a good team or not. But I knew they were all good blokes, and we look really good at training, and that's all I could really go off at the start.
Did you know anybody? Did you know any of the players there? Before you joined.
The only player I knew was Connor Carey. So when I was at the Cowboys, he was there as well. He was in the under-20s. I didn't know him too well, but obviously being an Aussie, I reached out to him before I came over there and just said, looking forward to it. But yeah, apart from that, no, didn't know anyone. Just knew Kari, the coach, and that was it.
And obviously, like you mentioned there, you'd not really known that much about Featherston. You came to Featherston. What was the first thing away from the rugby aspect that you did in Featherston?
I think it was just the passion. Obviously, that's comes from the fans, which they come to the rugby and pay their money and support us. But I could just tell the passion straight away, and it's very hard to describe. Like, it's very different to Australia. Like, I've played at the big stadiums in front of 50,000 people, but there was just something different and something special about Post Office Road. And there might be 2,000 or 3,000 people there, but definitely felt a lot better than playing at a big stadium in Australia, because sometimes you miss that atmosphere side of it. And yeah, you could definitely sense the pride and the passion of the Rovers fans straight away.
Apart from obviously Post Office Road itself, where else in Featherston is special to you?
Well, we had a couple of beers down at the Junction after the game, so I guess that's a pretty special place for me. Where else? I actually became really good friends with Andy from Vape Dudes. So he had a shop in Featherston just down the road. So quick shout out to Andy. Hope you're well, mate. We tried to catch up. Andy came to Australia at the start of the year, but I was training pretty hard and I couldn't catch up with him. So he was a really good fan, and ended up becoming a really good mate.
Brilliant. Looking at the season you had, was there one particular standout moment in the season for you?
There was so many. I think probably a standout was we played York Good Friday at home. It was beautiful weather. The crowd was there. They were loud. There was drums playing. There was music going the whole time. And before that game, we'd been really inconsistent. but we knew that if we put it all together, that we could, really put on a good score. And I think York were going really good at the time, and we were sort of a bit inconsistent. And I'm pretty sure we put about 40 points on them that day, in front of a big crowd. It was my first sort of Easter game, and that was probably a turning point for us as well, sort of realising that what we needed to do to play some good footy.
Was that the game that your mate Chizzy sort of like put his marker down in?
Was that his first game?
Yeah, I think so.
It might have been. Yeah, I think it might have been his first game. So obviously that gave us a boost as well, having someone like Chiz, his first game. And I always spoke to the boys about those sort of games. We really want to make a good impression. Milestone games, debut, 50th game. Things like that. I think that's something that as a club you really need to pride yourself on to lift, to make that a special day for that player.
Yeah, I mean it's shone. I mean the understanding seemed to be there from the off, really, didn't it? Within the spine of the team.
Yeah. Like I said, we're a bit inconsistent at the start of the year, and I think we just about had a different spine every week for about 6 weeks. But once we started to gel and found that combination that worked for us, we really sort of turned a corner from then, and obviously Chiz was a very big part of that.
We've got loads of questions coming in, can we? And I'm going to
probably all stitch up ones from the boys.
Well, I'm not going to get into that just yet, mate. I'm not going to get into that. Quick question from me. Obviously, what do you think it'll take for Featherston this year to actually, complete the Holy Grail and go to Super League?
Look, to be honest with you, I don't think much has to change. I know there's a new playing group this year and a new coach, but I think we set a really good platform last year, and we sort of showed what it takes to win and what it takes to be consistent. So you still got the majority of the playing group there from last year, and just from seeing the start of the year, added a lot more experience and a bit more class as well. So I don't think much has to change. It's just about, taking your moments in those big games and staying consistent.
And obviously, right as you say, it's just getting that bit of fine tuning, isn't it? Really. Yeah,
that's it. And it took us a long time to get that last year, but once we sort of got it and everyone was on the same page and we all knew what we had to do to win games. Once we got that platform and everyone knew the game plan, we were pretty hard to stop.
I want to touch on a little bit of family life. Congratulations, Cam. Yeah. I know it's a bit late. How's the little one?
Thank you. Yeah, awesome. Obviously, like I said, it's unprecedented times, and no one wishes for what's going on at the moment to happen. But I guess the only positive is that I've spent every minute of every day with my daughter, and I could have never imagined that happening. Obviously, with footy and away trips and training, I'm always away, but to be able to spend every day at home so far, it's been awesome.
And is there any truth in the rumour that if it had been a boy, you were going to call it Percy?
I was tossing that up. It was a very close contender.
Brilliant, mate. Brilliant. Are there any lads that you remain in touch with, that you speak to on a regular basis now?
To be honest with you, all the boys. I'm still in a group chat with the squad from last year, and I just think what we did last year, no one was talking about us at the start of the year. No one gave us a chance, ever really. And it's probably the most tight knit bunch of players that I've been involved with. And I know that when I hurt my knee back in February, every player in the team messaged me to say that they were thinking of me, and that sort of stuff means a lot for me. I've been through a lot in my career, but to feel the love and the passion from the boys, it's been unreal. And honestly, I talk to them all the time. So really good group of guys. And
keeping on the thing with the teammates, Cam, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions now about the teammates that you had. Who had the broadest accent that you struggled to understand?
Ooh. Luke Briscoe had a very strong accent when he came back for a few games. Who else? Jack Bussey sometimes. But I remember at the start when I first got there, when they're in a big group, I really struggled. One-on-one, I could sort of figure it out, but in a big group, I just was looking around, having no idea.
If we're going to have a dance-off, because I've heard you like to boogie, who would be the best dancer from the Aussie side of the team and from the English side of the team?
Oh, well, Aussie side is no question that it's me. That's
Yeah.
it. There's probably, I don't know, Chiz will probably try and throw his 2 cents in there. The Pommy boys. Who was Coops? Coops tried to sort of, I don't know if you call it dancing, but he'd sort of move around in a circle. And Danny Maskell had a couple of different dance moves. One of them was holding a pint. So that's an interesting one. Hadn't seen that one before.
Brilliant. Who would you fancy as a future NRL player?
Ooh. Well, there's a lot of guys that could come out here and I think make it. I know he's probably getting on a little bit now, but for me, James Lockwood, the way he plays and the way he leads, I think if he ever wanted to come out here and have a crack, I think his style and his toughness would definitely suit the NRL. And whenever sort of I'm looking around and not sure who to pass it to, he's always there. So I think his effort and the way he plays would definitely make it.
Who was the player who was always late to anything?
Oh, Makatoa. He was just, I don't know. He said his alarm clock never went off, but it happened all the time. So he was pretty funny. He'd always just turn up. His eyes would be shut and just wake up.
Well, I was going to ask you who was the funniest member of the squad that you played with? Was it Macca again?
The funniest. Well, funniest / dumbest is easily Josh Hardcastle. Just funny because anything he says, it just doesn't make sense. And if you have a go at him, he'll get back to you. He'll strike back twice as hard because he knows that he's in trouble if it keeps going. So Hardy.
Brilliant, Cam. Cammy, I'm going to get some questions asked because we've got loads of fans that have messaged us. We're going to start with a gentleman called Brad Day. He wants to know if it's acceptable to dress as a Greek waiter when you're going out with the lads on a bank holiday.
Oh, I'll never let that down. So what happened was we were going out for a night after a game, and I was wearing a T-shirt, and I wasn't sure what the rules were in Leeds with tattoos, because sometimes in Sydney you're not allowed any tattoos. So before I left home, I quickly just grabbed the long sleeve shirt that I had, and it was a nice white shirt. I thought it was really good. And as soon as I got out, all the boys started pizzling me, saying that I look like a Greek waiter, and that I should be taking their orders and getting them beers. So not my finest moment, but I was happy with the shirt, but the rest of the boys weren't.
Mark Yeldon asks if you've got any good James Lockwood stories. Keep them clean, Cammy. It's a family show.
Lockie. Well, I'll just sum him up by saying he's the captain, he's the leader, and he nicknamed himself All Night Lockwood.
The mind boggles me.
That's it.
Yeah,
family time. So that's all I can say.
Chris Ward asks if any Super League clubs came in for you when you were here.
So I was in contact with a couple. I did I was talking to the Leeds for a little bit because I knew Dave Ferner as the coach, and obviously with his situation, when that changed, it probably changed a little bit for me. But there was probably 2 or 3 other teams that I was in contact with, but unfortunately, it just sort of didn't work out. And look, when I came over there, my intentions were to push my way up to Super League, but that didn't happen. And it's just one of those things.
Bantam Pete asks, what's your most memorable performance for Featherston?
Memorable. I'm not sure it's memorable because I had a really good game, but I think my first game, round 1 in Bradford, I'll never forget that game because, the crowds came out. We went out for warm up, and I think it was snowing. I laid on the ground. It was freezing. It was rock hard. It was muddy. I think it was -1 at the time. And I just remember looking up in the sky, just going, wow, like, what am I doing? Like, I've never played in anything like this. So for me, that's probably the most memorable game or performance.
A typical summer's day then, in England.
Yeah.
-1.
I had to get used to it pretty quick.
Right. I'll try and get through as many of these as I can. David Medley asks, would you recommend any other Aussies to join Featherston Rovers?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's so much talent in Australia, and sometimes, around that 20 years old mark, if you don't make it from 20s to first grade, some guys can sort of get lost in the system. But, if anyone asked about going over to play championship, I couldn't recommend Featherston highly enough.
John Cox asks, who was the most vocal in the squad, and which UK crowd did you find the most intimidating?
I think the most vocal as the year went on was Ash Golding at the back. Once he felt comfortable in that team, he really took us to a next level, especially in defence on the line. And in terms of the crowd, I think when we played Lee away, their fans really turned up. They were really passionate. I know there was a bit of banter, a bit of rivalry. Obviously, the coach was the Featherston coach, and a few players went there as well. So I think when we played Lee away, and even at home, they brought a lot of fans and really made it a hostile environment.
Tony Wright asks, is there any other Cronulla players who have ever heard of Featherston?
To be honest, no, I don't think many had. But I quickly filled him in, and I know I obviously played with Andrew Fafita at Cronulla and his brother David at Wakefield. So he knew about Featherston and what they were about, but not many of the boys knew. No, so they were full of questions, and I had plenty of answers.
Alex Slawy asks, what do you think of the standard of the championship compared to the NRL?
I thought it was really good. To be honest, I was really surprised. It was it's obviously a different style of footy. At the start of the year, it's very wet, it's very muddy. We don't really have those conditions in Australia, but once it got dry, a lot of teams like to throw the ball around, and you got to turn up to play, otherwise you'll get beat. We got beat a couple of times by teams, below us on the table, and we just didn't turn up with the right attitude. So I think it's a really good comp and really strong.
Barry John Hawkin asks, do you miss anything about Featherston?
Honestly, yeah, I do. I miss everything. I miss going to training with the boys. I used to live in Leeds and travel down. I miss the 20-minute drive. I miss the crowds, the fans, all the sponsors and members. I miss all of it. And, in 2018, I sort of wasn't enjoying my football, and came over to Featherston, and that helped me rediscover my love of it. So it'll always hold a special place in my heart.
And Kieran Miller asks, any regrets on your career?
No regrets. Obviously, injuries are sort of out of your control, 99% of the time, and I can't control that. Obviously, no one wants to get injured playing footy, but that's part of the game. But in terms of moving to different clubs and meeting different people, no regrets.
On the similar sort of vein, obviously, Cammy, about regrets and stuff like that. Talk us about what led to you actually leaving Featherston. I mean, could you have stayed? Was there an offer there? Would you have stayed if you could? Would you have still liked to be, starting out the 2020 season in a Featherston shirt?
Yeah, it's a question that a lot of people did ask, because the way it ended was probably a bit unclear for a lot of people, and including myself. But I was really, I had a really good relationship with Dav and Mark and Steve, and they all knew my intention was to, push to play Super League. And as the year went on, it sort of it wasn't happening, and a few teams I was talking to were obviously fighting relegation, which made things a bit difficult as well. But I came back to Australia in October for a holiday, and I thought I was going to come back to the UK. And as time went on, I sort of realised that wasn't going to happen in Super League anyway. But what probably a lot of people don't know is that my fiance is a nurse, and she was doing a registration over there, and she was also pregnant at the time, and she hit a bit of a hurdle in terms of her work and being able to work over there. So obviously, footy doesn't last forever, but her job does, and she didn't work all of that year, and then she potentially wouldn't have worked again. So she was at risk of losing her registration in Australia, which, to me, it just outweighed anything to do with footy. And obviously she was, 4 or 5 months pregnant at the time too. And the chance to come home and be around friends and family sort of made that decision for me. And, I didn't have a club at the time, and I was lucky enough to get thrown a lifeline by Cronulla Sharks. So there was an offer from Fev, and honestly, I was, 5 minutes away from signing a deal. But at the last minute, a bit of a hurdle, and it just seemed like the right thing to do to come home and look after myself and my partner.
Yeah, it's all about choices, as you say, isn't it? And I'm looking at that. Well, what I'm going to do, Cammy, we do have some quick fire questions to fire in before we finish. Yep. Tea or coffee?
Oh, always coffee, but when I went to the UK, tea.
Sweets or crisps?
Oh, sweets. Sweet tooth for me.
Yeah. Pineapple on your pizza or pineapple off your pizza?
Not a chance. Off.
Off, defo. Cats or dogs? Are you a cat man or a dog man?
I'm a cat man, and copped a lot of flack for bringing my cat over to England. But yeah, cat man.
Early morning or night bird?
I've always been early morning, but when I moved to the UK and it was dark for so long and cold, I became a late night and sleep in.
You changed completely.
Yeah.
Would you prefer a night out with the lads or a night in with the missus?
Ooh, well, the missus is asleep with the baby, so I'll say a night out with the lads.
Oh, wait, while she watches this.
Yeah, hopefully she doesn't.
England or Australia?
Oh, obviously Australia's home, but I love my time in England, and I wish it lasted for longer, and I'd definitely come back one day, if not to play, definitely for a holiday. So right now I'd say England.
Club or country?
Or country.
Super League, Championship or NRL?
Oh, that's a trick question. Championship, Featherston.
Magic Weekend or Summer Bash?
Summer Bash. Easily the best weekend of the season. Great win against York.
Bondi Beach or Blackpool Beach?
That's a toss of the coin too, but I'm going to have to go with Bondi.
Oh, right. Bushwear hat or flat cap?
I think that's an easy one there. Flat cap.
Well, Cammy, it's been great. you know, the fans have absolutely mobbed us with this. There's probably a few more questions that we'll get in as well, so we'll try and get them to you, Cammy, and we'll call it at that. Thanks for coming, mate. Stay safe. Great as ever to see you, and you know, fantastic for joining us.
Thanks, mate. And I just want to say good day to all the Featherston fans and members. You know, just stay safe in these crazy times, and hopefully we get some footy back on the park soon and be back cheering on the boys.
Cheers, Cammy. Well, we hope you've enjoyed that, viewers, and obviously, you know, we love bringing you these. The question is, who do you want to see next in these Q&A sessions?